Elliott, addiction specialist. Coming clean with me.
Hello, I'm Elliott Wald, addiction specialist, and welcome to another episode of Coming Clean with Me. And today my guest is Ollie Ollerton. Ollie is a former UK Special Forces operative, instantly recognised as one of the founding directing staff on Channel 4's SAS Who Dares Wins. Ollie entered the military at 18, joining the Royal Marine Commandos and the Special Boat Service, and toured in Northern Ireland, Operation Desert Storm in Iraq, and Ollie battled with alcohol, depression and suicidal thoughts for many years. But he's been sober since 2019 and he's dedicated himself to helping others to overcome their addiction and challenges through his work with Breakpoint. He's a multiple best-selling author, a powerful motivational speaker and a staunch advocate for mental health. Join us as we explore Ollie's mindset, his transformation and his commitment to empowering individuals to conquer their full potential. Hello, Ollie.
Hello, Elliott. That was lovely, mate. Thank you.
Nice
very
little
much.
introduction.
It's good to have a reminder.
A reminder of how great you are. So, Ollie, listen, just dive straight in.
Yeah.
My first question with my research team, let me have a look. Let's get this in order. Let's go straight to this childhood trauma that I've heard about. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, really, when we talk about that, I always say that this is my first memory of life on this planet. It's my first memory at 10 years old of life starting on this planet, because it was such a traumatic event. You know, the events before 10 years old I cannot remember, well, very vaguely, but for me, and a lot of people do know this story, but for the benefit of your audience, I was 10 years old, Burton-on-Trent, Staffordshire. Circus turned up into town. We went down to the circus, absolutely elated to go to, I think it was Chipperfield or something like that, doesn't really matter, but we went to see the first person we saw. Said, can we have a look around? He said, help yourself, lads. It was 1980. You could actually walk around a circus with wild animals, not a problem. And I was drawn to as we got through into the big top, you know, there was elephants, this, that and the other, nothing that really excited me, but there was a split in the canvas and I was like drawn to it. I left my brother and his best mate, and before I knew it, I was pulling the canvas to one side. The sun hit me straight in the eyes, blurred my vision for a second. But as soon as my vision cleared, I saw something in front of me that was far better than the circus. And that was a baby chimp. Now, for me, I was like so infatuated with Tarzan. I watched it every day, summer holidays. You know, I remember the old Johnny Wiseman, speeded up in the water, the black and white. And that to me was like a little piece of Hollywood. So I was drawn to this creature, scared. I approached it, and before I knew it, I was looking over this creature, not much bigger. I was only 10. And this creature then went down, picked up something from the floor and started passing it to me. And I was like, what is that? You know, it's like, I realized it was food. It was like, this thing is feeding me. I'm like this baby David Attenborough. It's like an incredible moment. You know what I mean? It was surreal. And it was this peaceful moment that I've never, you know, it's like time stood still. It was beautiful, beautiful blue skies. It was just me and this chimp. It was amazing. But then that serenity was broken like a fighter jet cutting through the sky, as severe as I heard this roar that I'll never forget. And that was its mother.
Oh.
Well, I didn't ask it whether it was mummy or daddy.
Mum?
Are you mum or dad?
Yeah.
It was about 50 kilograms.
It was just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, it was oh, fuck. And it was like, it was about this 50 kilogram chip. I didn't get a chance to weigh it. It was fucking big. And it was heading to me at Mach 10. You know, it came bounding out from the shadows. And I was like a deer in the headlights. And then all of a sudden, this... as I thought I need to move, this thing pounced. All of a sudden, the blue sky turned to black as this thing landed on my chest, pinned to the floor. And it was one sole intention was to kill me. I was a threat to its young.
Sure.
And that's what its intention was. And it was that fist came down, the first fist came down, knocked everything out of me. And followed by a barrel. It was like a drummer in a rock band. I was the drum. And then it was at that point my life started flashing in front of me. And I can remember that moment, although it was happening so quick, I can remember being in that moment thinking, I'm going to die. And you have that choice in those moments where it's, you know, do I retaliate or do I defend and just curl up? And if I had curled up, I wouldn't be here today for sure. But in that moment, I heard something like there was a voice, and that voice said, it doesn't end today. You know, and I'd stepped into this space that I'd never been to before. I accessed this inner potential, and that inner potential gave me the courage to fight back. And I managed to like struggle with the chimp, get it off. I got my knee up to my chest, smashed out as hard as possible, knocked it to the floor, and then I managed to have a few seconds just to get out of the way. And I was scurrying across the floor, thinking, you know, this thing. And I was watching as this chimp was getting up. There was blood all over it, my blood all over its teeth. And And this thing came at me in Mach 20 now, more angrier than I'd upped the game. It was angrier than ever. And honestly, I just sat there waiting for this thing to get to me. And it was an inch away before the chain caught it.
Wow.
And if it wasn't for that chain, I wouldn't be here today, which my ex-wife would be fucking elated about. But the thing is, that event for me, and I talk about it a lot because that was a defining moment for me. And I've picked apart that through ayahuasca and all kinds of stuff, which I only recently just dealt with that. And it meant so much to me that, what I learned from that event, how it set me on a trajectory for life. And there was good things and bad things. Like the first thing for me was the fact that I tapped into that inner potential. That inner potential was the one thing that got me through Special Forces selection twice, and also from the brink of suicide. It was knowing we have that inner potential. Regardless of what's going on in here, we can access something more, that inner strength. And that was a powerful thing then. And then another thing, it was the fact that this, for me, in my business is called Breakpoint, is the fact that you have to step into short-term discomfort for long-term gain. And the way that we're all wired on this planet is to take short-term comfort, which leads to long-term pain. And it's something that really meant a lot to me. So that it was a lot of learning in that very small moment, very traumatic.
Yeah.
But
I think you took a big resource from that you looked inside of yourself and you found a strength, and I think that strength stayed with you for the rest of your life to get you through multiple things like selection, as you say. It's a resource you suddenly developed.
Yeah.
That's great. So what other pivotal moments occurred in your teenage years that shaped your path prior to joining the military?
I think there was a lot of events going on. I mean, to be honest, after the chimp attack, I had all this energy. I had this. I was very I was pushing the envelope everywhere, and it was I was a bad boy, a very bad boy. I came from a good family, and out of three of us, I got in trouble with the police. And I was pushing the envelope big time, just big time. And I needed someone to get me to stop. Anyway, that ended in I ended up in a remand home, only for a short period of time before I went to court, and I just skimmed a custodial sentence. How I never got sent away, I don't know, but that for me was a wake-up point. And monumental for my mum, because her marriage had fallen apart, my dad had left and everything, and then even though everything was falling apart for my mum, she's the one that, she reached down and picked me up.
I'm just sorry.
Not at all.
I just thought of something that really important. It's interesting because you said about getting in trouble, going to court, etc., avoiding custodial sentence, and yet you ended up in the military when there's part of that may have not liked not confrontation, but may not have liked authority. That's the word I'm looking for. How did you feel about authority after?
Yeah, I tell you what, that's a really interesting one, Elliott, because my father was like, he was strict, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because there was some good things from that with my discipline and everything else. But for me at that young age, because I've been brought up in such an extremely disciplined and structured sort of upbringing, I didn't really believe that I was allowed to be a kid, a lot of the times. And it was almost like, with that in mind, that also amplified when I went to the military. I rebelled against all kinds of authority.
Yes.
100%, and it wasn't the fact I wasn't disciplined. It was the fact that I was rebelling against anything of authority. And to be honest, mate, I was a pain in the arse when I was in the military.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I bring that up because, I touched, before we came on the podcast, I gave you a bit of a rush through my life history and of an abusive childhood and bringing up. And I also disliked authority. And I remember being on the parade square and being screamed at and just like, fuck off. But then, and until you get your head around it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's one thing that, it wasn't until years later, I'd say even the recent years. This is one thing, right? This is how I've sort of picked it apart. I go back to that day, when I actually was attacked by that chimp. When I went in to do ayahuasca in 2019, there was a lot of stuff I learned. But one of the things I heard was I actually went through the whole attack, the emotional attack, everything, when I went and did the ayahuasca, the plant medicine, which was horrendous. But it was something I needed to unpick. And one of the things that happened is when I was being attacked by the chimp, when I was on the plant medicine, everything stopped. And a message came into my head saying, what would have happened if you'd not fought that day? And everything just stopped, and I lay down and I died. I actually died in that experience. It was quite monumental. I mean, I lay down, died, opened my eyes. My wife was looking straight into my eyes, those blue eyes. And I just looked at her and said, don't worry, babe, come with me. And we went off into the spirit world. I know this sounds a bit out there, but this was it.
I live in the world of out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I went into the spirit world. I was no longer body. We were both spirit, and it was just incredible. Didn't want to come back. But anyway, I heard a voice when I was out there. It said, "Ollie, people need you." And I came back into the body, and it was like, I've seen death, and it was monumental for me. But the thing is, when I am, afterwards, it was like I got this message: stop fighting, stop fighting. And
what do you think that meant?
What that meant for me was, it wasn't about the military. It wasn't about anything. It was about, I was fighting everything. Now I'm up for a good fight. When I mean, like, if I don't believe in something and this, that, and the other. But when it's a detriment to yourself and your own sort of, and you as a person, then you need to address that. And I was fighting everything. I was, authority. I was fighting parents. I was fighting the system. Fighting everything would be a fight, and it was just stop fighting. For me, it was like, just drop that guard a little bit and allow. Sometimes I've been fighting too much, resisting too much, and the authority and everything else. So for me, it was like such a strong message: just stop fighting. And that's something. When I went to did ayahuasca, it was really interesting, because I thought, when you go and do that and you do this, you've got to come back, and you've of course got to be mended and everything else. So I'm telling a story when I come back that, well, I learned, because there was a big marker was compassion, a big marker was stop fighting. And for me, I came back and I thought, well, I struggle with compassion. Like, my wife can cry in front of me and I'll just be like, when's this over? I'm crap. I'm crap with compassion. You know what I mean?
Well, at least you are.
Yeah, at least I admit it. But the thing for me was, I then realised, well, how come if I've done ayahuasca and I've done all the treatments, that I should be mended? And I realised ayahuasca was just telling me where I needed to focus. Not the fact that I was mended just through doing that one experience. It was like, you need to work on your compassion. You need to stop fighting.
It was almost like that was the gateway of the paths that you need to take.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And that really helped me a lot, because instead of being confused and thinking, well, I've still got no compassion, it was then I realised, yes, it was just telling me where I need to focus my attention.
Okay. So now you're 18. You join the Royal Marines Commando.
I look good for 18, don't I?
You look fucking amazing. Ollie's 18. He looks
18,
great.
look at that. Fucking hard life.
I bet you wouldn't want to be 18 all over again.
That.
So now you're 18. You join the Royal Marines, correct?
Yeah, joined the Royal Marines. And for me, it was like, I was disappointed as soon as I joined. And I don't hear a lot of military people saying that got to my level in the military, but I was disappointed. And really, for me, that was the one thing. I went across to Northern Ireland. I grew up very quickly there when I realised they called it a conflict, but when people are shooting at you, that's a war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I grew up very quickly there. And then off to Desert Storm. And then I came back from there and I was like, I couldn't handle life as a peacetime soldier. I couldn't stand being in camp. I wanted to be at war every day. And I blame the chimp for that, by the way.
Okay.
And this was the thing for me. It was like, I was searching for war. After that attack.
Why do you think that was?
Because of that attack as a kid, that put me on this path to look for. I was searching for this battle, and this is what we think we feel that success, happiness, everything is external of us, don't we? And for me, I was searching for a battle that was out there.
Was that so you didn't have to look at the battle that was going internally?
100%. 100. You hit the nail on the head.
Like an inner civil war.
That's it. And because we think it's external, at the end of the day, the place the war was internal. And it wasn't until years later that I did, I started thinking about suicide at that point, that crunch point, where I realized that for you to change anything in your world, you need to change the energy of who you are. It's an inside job.
100%. I know this is about you, but I'm just going to pick up on
please do.
Trying to take your life. I was living in LA. It was my 21st birthday. I remember it very well. I'd come out the services. I was living in Los Angeles, and I'm alone on my birthday. And I start thinking about all the things I'd gone through as a kid, all the abuse. And I started feeling sorry for myself. And I had a shoulder injury, and I had a whole load of painkillers. And I started just downing those painkillers. And as I said to you, I very rarely drink alcohol, but I remember knocking back a bottle of vodka. And I don't have any recollection of what happened, but I wake up in Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, and I'm handcuffed to each side of the bed. At this time, I'm about 18 stone, in pretty decent nick, training very hard. And it turns out that someone had knocked on my door delivering a pizza. I'd opened the door, not being aware of it, knocked unconscious, been taken to the hospital. I'm handcuffed and I need a wee. So I asked the nurse, can I do a wee? And she's like, she gets this thing and she's like, she's going to take it out for me. And at 21, it was incredibly embarrassing. And at that moment in time, for me, it was like, I'm never fucking letting anything that's happened to me in my past dictate my future and where I'm going to be. And that's really what you're saying.
Yeah.
You had that moment.
Yeah, I had that moment, and that's the thing, isn't it? Unless I think this is what we do. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking about the survival instinct within us. You know, there's no stronger driving force in each and every one of us than the desire for survival. It's the same with every organism on this planet, from a blade of grass going through concrete to every living and breathing organism. You know, it's that drive for survival. It's more important than your followers on Egogram or, you know, or what house you got, what car you got. It's that drive for survival. And I think the more that we can connect and have empathy for that, I think it helps us really work with our strengths and weaknesses. You know, at the end of the day, the brain wants to do what we did yesterday and the day before, because as far as it's concerned, it's kept us alive until today. It wants to keep repeating that habit loop because it's safe and it's familiar. And we've got to understand that we're not going to evolve if we're just a carbon copy of yesterday, are we? You're not going to get anywhere.
True.
You know, we end up fearing the future and regretting the past, and we rarely live in that moment. It's easier said than done. I try and do it a lot of the time. You know, you never can do it permanently, I don't believe, but the more we can live in that moment and enjoy that moment, we can really start to get the most out of life. But you know, just for me, you know, when I look at, I feel there's so many people on this planet. And this is why I think a lot of people drink and find, you know, things to take them away from reality, is the fact that they're stressed out to fuck. You know, they're looking for escape. And the thing is, you've only got to look. You wake up in the morning, you put your phone up. It's the news app. There's never a good message on there. You're being belt fed all this information through the media and everything. You know, there's two things that will grab your attention, and that's death and that's sex and death. Do you know what I mean? And the media know that. They know that they can do a headline that is going to, regardless of what you're doing, bang, I'll snap your attention. And that's sex or death, you know, fear or sex. And, you know, we've got to learn that, you know, and when you look at what you go through, when you're in those situations, you know, when you're being attacked by a chimp or when you've got a gun pointed at you, the things that happen, you know, all your blood runs away from your vital organs into your extremities so you can get away, injection of glucose, cortisol, all that kind of thing. The brain rush, the blood rushes from the frontal cortex into the rear brain so that you haven't got any creative thought. The last thing that you want to be thinking about is how to be creative when you're being shot at. You know what I mean? You need to be instinctive, because that super processor at the back, this is so slow. You know, 5 to 9 bits of information thereabouts.
Correct.
And if
I love that.
Yeah.
Dr. Miller, 1956, wrote that paper called 7 plus or minus 2.
Oh, really?
Between 5 and 9 bits of information you can be aware of consciously at any one time. I'd forgotten about that piece of
research. Yeah. No, I use that a lot, mate, and all that stuff.
Dr. Miller, 1956.
Yeah. And that's a bit more to the information that I'm going to steal from you. But when you stress, that goes down to 1, maximum 2, you know, and it's like, we've got to understand, and people are walking around like this on a daily basis. You know, they are walking around in that sort of hyper-vigilant state because they're not aware that it's happening. They just think that is their modus operandi. That's how they operate. But no organism on this planet can live in that heightened sense of emergency without having some kind of dis-ease in the body at some point. There's going to be an illness. Because at the end of the day, you look at your immune system, what's not needed when you're being hunted? You know what I mean? It's your immune system and all those vital organs. Yeah. So that's dropped down. But if that's dropped down on a constant basis, that's when the disease gets in there and everything else. You look. I always laugh at these, not laugh, but look at the wildlife programs. You see the gazelle and it's chilling out. You know, beautiful hot day. It's down by the wadi and it's like chewing on some grass, having a great time. Suddenly it gets a sniff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, straight across over
plains.
The plains. Yeah, and it's being chased by the lion. The lion gives up. What's it doing 5 minutes later?
Yeah.
Chilled out, eating the grass, and it's able to turn on that stress response up and down when it's needed. It doesn't sit out there chewing grass going, oh my God, I don't know, there's going to be a lion around it. He's prepared to sit there knowing he's going to be attacked at some point, but when that happens, he'll get the upper edge and be able to bolt off. And we as humans can't drop that. You know what I mean? I was laughing about myself when I released one of my books, my latest book, which is How to Survive Almost Anything. I put a post on Instagram.
How to survive
almost anything.
Almost.
Go
on. Tell me about this.
And I put a post on, this isn't a pitch for the book, but I put a post on Instagram and it was like, buy my book, you know, this, that and the other. And I was in shorts. It was this hot summer's day. And I was so happy. I was going through Instagram. I was like, look at all these comments. Oh, this is brilliant. Oh, this is great. You know, really, really feeling the love and everything for this book. And then I got down to one and I was like, and it was like, Ollie, have you forgot to do leg day? Mate,
There's always something.
for the next 24 hours, I was like that. My head, like all the things, all the things that I could have said. And I said to my wife, she said, don't react. Do not react. Leave it 24 hours.
You're right.
But for 24 hours, I was like,
screwing.
But we allow that one thing.
Absolutely.
And that's how we're wired. That's how we're wired. We're wired because when it comes to your survival, there's no benefit into looking to all the good stuff. There's always looking for everything that could. I mean, this brain is it's looking for ways to survive on a constant basis.
I love, and I'm going to steal. I just thought I'd let everybody know I am stealing this from Ollie. I love that blade in the grass coming up through the concrete. I just saw that when you said that. I'm going to steal that. Definitely.
Yeah, well, it's sharing knowledge, mate. This is what we're here to do.
Perfect. So tell me how alcohol and the military and the NAFI and how acceptable, how that started for you.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm not going to blame the military.
No, okay,
I had a good.
I say that in terms of. It's a very acceptable thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not just acceptable; it's the way of life. You know, it's and really what I was going to say that I was brought up in Burton-on-Trent. It's a brewery town.
Oh, okay.
They paid everyone in beer. You know what I mean, including my family. So there was Diamond Whites everywhere when I was 14.
In the bottles of baby.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't get off to a good start. And really for me, and when you start drinking, it's to mask an emotion. Isn't it? A lot. Not only that, it's cool, it's trendy.
Yeah, it's something fun that
it's something that everyone evolves into doing it. There's no one saying that you shouldn't drink. There might be nowadays, but there's certainly back then it's like a natural evolution to do that. But really, when I look at that, it's such a good tool because we rent a personality straight away when we're in confrontational situations, usually with the opposite sex. So we use that vice then as a drug to really just, we have conversations that we talk to girls that we would never talk to.
Confidence.
Yeah. And you don't care.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you're making bad choices. You know what I mean? But really, for us, as we grow up, we then start to rely on that. That's when we feel lack of confidence. And then before you know it, someone's died, I'm going to have a drink. Someone's got married, I'm going to have a drink. I've had a bad day, I'm going to have a drink. I've had a great day, I'm going to have a drink. It's like just
coping mechanism.
And then really, it's just that how are we supposed to evolve as humans if we're taking a drug every time and we don't actually go to the core issue, which is what the main a lot of the issues is like lack of confidence. You're never going to address that source problem if you're forever taking drink. This is why a lot of people are walking around, they haven't got the confidence. Like I didn't have the confidence to speak on stage. I went through the military and everything, the special forces. I didn't have the confidence when I did it for the first time. It was
I don't mind being shot at. I don't mind being dropped behind enemy lines, but I'm not getting on stage.
I'm not getting on stage. It was like that. But then every time, you can't get me off. I love it. Absolutely love it now. But, at the end of the day, I had no confidence. And really, when I got to that stage later on, after joining the Royal Marines, and I'll get back to your question in a minute, but the fact was, when I got to the point where I crashed and burned, it was like, I finally said to myself, I have had enough of that. I'm no longer going to accept a carbon copy of the past because it looks dreadful. It feels dreadful. I don't want to be part of that. And really, I took responsibility. The first time in my life, I took responsibility for where I was. Did
you start thinking in a different way?
I absolutely started thinking in a different way. It's like for me, what I did is like in that moment, I was like, it got to the point where I was starting to think about suicide. And it was like a slap round the face for me because I heard the voice again that said, it said, does not end like, there's more to your story than this. This is what I heard in my head. And luckily I listened to it.
Do you know what? I was looking for a pen earlier on when you said something, and I thought I haven't got a pen. I can't ask for a pen. We're in the middle of a podcast. You said something like, there was a voice in my head with a chimp that said, it's not going to end like this. I think those were your words, right? And I kept thinking to myself, wow, I wonder if that voice comes back to him internalizing, replicating that voice over and over through his lifetime. Yeah. It's not going to be like this. It's not going to be like this. It's like you've got this inner strength that pushes you forward.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's not the only time. When I went for Special Forces selection back then, I can remember getting off the bus, the youngest on the course, 250 thereabouts, didn't count them. Got off the bus and that voice, straight away, my ego was like, you have made a big mistake. Get back on the bus. Just get back on the bus. And I was going to turn around and get back on. I was like, you're going to look like a failure. You did all this. And then the voice said, just do today. Just do today. And luckily I listened to that, hit the mountain, passing all these people that I thought were better than me every time, a milestone of growth. And when I was passing them, I was like, these people I perceived that were better than me. And then I was going past these people growing each time. And I started going, who's that then? Who's that talking to me in my head? Because you're lying to me. you're lying. That's when I started to question. You know what I mean? It was that voice. But going back,
Questioning yourself.
questioning myself, yeah. And I think that's a big move for anyone. You know, when you start to become aware of the things you think about, that is the first big step. Because if you're unconscious to the things that are going on up here, you're never going to evolve. You're just a part of the program. But anyway, listen, going back to your question about the alcohol and the military, yeah, I mean, you know yourself.
Yep.
It is, you know, it's the thing that everybody does. I can't actually imagine, you know, I can't look back and say I wish I hadn't have drank, because it was part of that. It was part of the big boys club. And, you know, there are interventions now which I'm not there, so I don't know if they work. But at the end of the day, this was the way we used to deal with stress.
Yep.
You know, you used to go out, do stuff, and it was like, just get shit-faced.
But I think,
work hard, play hard.
I think that starts very early on, because even when you're going through basic training and you get leave or whatever, you're going out with all the boys you're on basic training with, going to down the pubs and getting pissed.
No, it's just you don't do anything else but do that.
It's the culture.
But the thing is, for me, I just feel like, you know, even when I was going away, when I was qualified SBS and everything, special forces and going around the world, you know, I went to some amazing places, and instead of like, I would look for the bar. You know, I could have been anywhere. I could have been in the back streets in London or Manchester or whatever, but I went to the bar. I just looked every time I had the opportunity to escape from the reality of who I was. I would get shit-faced. And that, for me, became my identity. You know, when I did crash and burn that time, I actually had no fucking clue who I was. And that, again, how your mind's wired, because it wants to do what it did yesterday and the day before. It wants to be, it wants to repeat the past. When you don't know who you are, the future moving forward without the vices that have made you who you are is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. This is part of my identity, drinking.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I don't have that identity. What am I going to do to deal with life? What am I going to do to deal with problems? How am I going to deal with bickering, arguments, bills, bonuses, money, not having money? That's your trigger. That's how you dealt with everything.
Yeah, 100%. And then there's also the social sort of pressure, you know. Oh, hey, where's Ollie? Where's Party Boy? You know, it's like...
How do you deal with that now?
Well, mate, my life has changed dramatically. You know, when I first stopped drinking, it's like I actually gave up in 2019, but I gave up in 2016, and that was the second show of SAS Who Dares Wins in Costa Rica. And for me, it was like the second show. I was like, I want to give my best on TV, so I'm going to not. And I know the first series, I was really affected by the amount I drank leading up to that.
Right.
And I went into it like a bit of a gibbering wreck. And then the second one, I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, 8 weeks out, I'm going to try my best. I've never done that in my life. So I had something to aim for. So I said, I think it was 6 weeks. And then it got to the point where it was the rap party, you know what I mean? It was like everyone let loose.
Yeah.
And like even Foxy, one of my best mates off the show that I've known for eons, you know, he couldn't wait to get Ollie back. And, you know, it came to that rap party. And it was like... Foxy came up and was like, right, let's get shit-faced. And it was the first time ever that I'd actually not fallen into the program. I actually brought the program back into the frontal cortex and analysed what I was doing in that moment. I took a breath and went, hold on, I feel fucking great. I feel amazing. And I just took a breath and I looked at Foxy and went, sorry, mate, I'm going to give it a miss. And he was speechless. And I walked off to my room, really in this world that I didn't know what was going on. I sat in that room, heard everyone partying, and I managed to push through that. And then the next morning, everyone was still drinking at like 6 a.m, shit-faced. And I was going out for a run, and it was like, that was the best reward in the world. It was like...
Isn't it?
Oh, it was incredible.
I say this to people all the time, you know, who listen to this show, and when you get up on a Saturday morning when you didn't get shit-faced on a Friday, it's like, now I can do things with the family, I can do things for myself, I can go to the gym, I can feel good.
Yeah.
Oh, what night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I can remember someone saying to me, it was on Instagram when I first said, you know, because once you put it on Instagram, it's real, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I actually said, I'm going to stop drinking, and someone wrote on there, it's like, well, you only live once, why would you do that? And I went, yeah, exactly. You know, it's glass half full, isn't it?
Do you know what? When people say, I have a response now, it's very, very simple, and I go, said every addict once.
Yes.
Why would you want to give up drinking? Said every addict once. Yeah. Why do you want to give up drugs? Said every addict once. I love having good time with drugs. Said every addict once.
Yes.
You know, I like getting pissed. Said every addict once.
Yeah.
That's my go-to.
Yeah.
That's it. Simple as that.
No, 100%.
So what was the turning point for you? You know, before 2019, that's it now. What was the
Yeah, well, for me, it's like I was battling with it for a long time. It wasn't it wasn't a point when I went, right, that's it. You know, I was battling with it. It wasn't enjoyable. It got to the point where, you know, and this again is, like I said before, you know, the opposite of what Breakpoint is taking the path of least resistance, and it's the short-term comfort, long-term gain. And short-term comfort is taking drugs, take alcohol.
Of course.
Because for that small window of feeling good, God, you pay for that. You know what I mean? You pay for it tenfold. And it's like, I could not, I was looking back, I get one good day of having a laugh, and then that would extend. I didn't want to come down. So I'd then go on another day. Then it could be 3 days. It could even be 4 days.
Yeah.
And then I would lose 3 times that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, I was battling with that for a long time. My soul was telling me, this has got to stop. I could see this repeat pattern. Like we were talking before on the way here, weren't we? And it's like you're doing the same thing all the time, expecting a different outcome. That is madness, absolute madness. So
madness.
if I kept doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome, and then the whole thing about, well, I'll just learn to manage it, I went into that sort of zone as well for a bit. And I even realised that just having 1 or 2 drinks just disrupted my chemistry so much.
Yeah.
I did it as soon as I had 1 drink, I'd have all these dreams and visions of doing something, and then all of a sudden it would go, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about anything. And that would then take me, drink more, do whatever. And it was just this up and down roller coaster. And I really do, looking back now, I now realise that we're dopamine addicts, aren't we?
Definitely.
But our system isn't designed to have these dopamine spikes.
You're right.
You know what I mean? And that's what we get addicted to. That it was shopping, porn, everything. Whatever your vice is, it's that dopamine, and it's like that for me is like a lot of people's problem.
I'm going to pick up on something you said about pain and pleasure. So this is the way that I describe it. In life, we have most of the things we do in life revolve around having a level of pain, right? Let's say we go to work, we call that pain. Yeah. To get paid to buy nice things, we call that pleasure, right? So pain and pleasure. We learn to drive a vehicle, we call that pain. To have the freedom to get from A to B, we call that pleasure. Yeah. Now, most things in life have an element of pain before you get pleasure. But when it comes to drugs and drink, there is a perception of pleasure first. The pain comes later. They're the wrong way round. The drivers are mixed up.
Yeah.
You have to put the pain before the pleasure, so you're reminded of the reasons why you don't want to do the thing that you used to do.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I have actually been thinking along those lines as well at the moment. What actually makes us actually take action, right? You've got either reward or fear.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Those two things. And at the end of the day, it's because I look around at people doing these abusive, why is someone smoking? So people know. I mean, there's enough evidence now. There's not enough evidence at the moment about drink because that's a carcinogenic.
Yes, definitely.
You know what I mean? And also, I was watching something on the way here on Instagram about, and it makes sense, catching cancers through coke addiction because the amount of shit that's in there.
They're burnt in a tyre. So when they take it, they have a rubber tyre where they put the coke in and they burn it. So it creates carcinogenics within it.
Exactly.
And if you talk about cigarettes, there are on average cigarettes 4,000 chemical compounds with 38 carcinogenics in every cigarette. That's a lot. So when your alcohol consumption, what did it get to its maximum in terms of quantity?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'd actually come back from, I was more or less when I was working in Iraq as a contractor, mercenary. I don't like to call it a mercenary, but I suppose it was at the end of the day. But I was over there, and I was, as soon as I left the military, it got worse. It got a lot worse. And
why do you think that was?
Because I was working a lot harder in the military. You know what I mean? I was kept within the confines of the military, and that was detrimental in some respects. But the thing is, when I look at coming out the back end of that, the fact was I worked for that period, and then you allowed a small period to then get drunk. You know what I mean? You had to be back at work to perform. But when I left the military, that wasn't the case. I wasn't working as hard or for the same kind of time away. But then I was like, I was trained in my head that when you're not working, you're drinking, and I had a lot more time off when I was a civilian.
Work hard, play hard.
Work hard, play hard. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I did that, and then I went over to Iraq as a contractor. I was being paid a fortune out there. It was brilliant. Shortly after getting there, I was attacked, which was the most scariest experience in my life. And the reason I say that is because it was the first time in my life I'd not had that close-knit team around me that, makes you feel invincible. You've got all the assets, air assets, ships out at sea that you can bring in, naval gunfire, all kinds of things. You know what I mean? You feel invincible when you're in the special forces. You're like, bring it on. I want it. Come and get us. We're ready for you.
Yep.
But when I was out there in Iraq, there was 2 of us and we were attacked by 8 people. You know what I mean? 2 cars. And it was fucking horrible, mate. I was like, I thought I was dying. I was driving a car at 130 k's an hour, having to have this gunfight out the window. And it was like, I was fucking, and I didn't think I was coming home. So after,
what year was this?
That was 2003, 2004 that happened. So it's like just after the fall of the statue in Firdos Square. And then and then, it was the calm before the storm.
It's almost like I put myself in such a situation that is so fucking dangerous that I'm lucky to come out of it. So when I'm not working, why don't I get obliterated?
Yeah. Exactly that mentality. And the fact was, it's like also there was a lot going on in my life. I'd actually left my wife at that time. My son was only 3 years old, and I decided enough was enough. I had to get to a war zone to get away from her. It's like, so I had all that going on. And the way that I'd quieten that noise down was drinking. As soon as the doors were shut, bang, start drink. And everyone in the villa was doing the same thing, but I felt I was drinking more than everyone else, because when the doors shut at night, I made sure I had a stash in the bedroom, because it's the only way I had to knock myself out to sleep. And you don't really, when you're drinking, you don't sleep.
No,
it's not sleep.
Level.
It's not the same level. Every night I slept with a pistol under my pillow, not knowing if the door was going to get bashed in through the night. It was, and then I started taking Valium, and
Valium mixed with the alcohol.
Yeah, and it was like, and then you don't have to be a mental health specialist to understand that cocktail, plus being in a war zone, being shot at, is good for you. It's not. Don't test it. Take it from me.
I'm not going.
I'm not going. Please take it from me. So for me, that was it. It's like, I can remember this one time I went to this. Like every Thursday was these parties in Baghdad, and it's like we all used to go, tooled up, body armor on, in the armored vehicles, go to a place. You'd stay there till the next morning, and then leave when you're semi-sobered up. And I went there. I had my own car, and I got there. And I can remember at 12 o'clock at night, I was pissed out of my face, like on whiskey and all sorts of stuff, proper fucked. And I just got my body armor back on, shirt over the top, my weapons, and I got to my car and told the local guy, let me out.
Wow.
I fucking released myself straight into Baghdad, and I was like
drunk.
Beyond, mate. I wasn't driving. I was aiming the car, armed.
In a war zone.
No ID, no nothing. In a war zone. So you're an enemy to everyone. And I got lost, mate, in Baghdad. You know what I mean? I got lost in Baghdad. Didn't know where I was, and I was shitting myself. And I was like, I need to get to high ground, because I knew where our villa was, in line with one of the towers. I can remember going to the top of this tower, on top of this bridge, and I can remember this was one of the moments. I opened the door, and my AK-47 fell out the car door onto the floor, and I followed it. And I was lying on the floor, and I was like thinking, this ain't good. Because at any moment, there could have been the militia come up, there could have been the Americans come up, and I managed to find this this marker, and I managed to point the car in the right direction and stumble over the villa. That was the first marker. And then for me, this then went on, and I left Iraq. I was living in Australia. I got myself a decent job and stuff, and the drinking got out of control. It's like I was doing this, abstaining the week and then get hammered at the weekend. But then those weekends, I'd wake up in the morning, binging, and then I'd wake up because you can't sleep. I'd probably go to sleep and then wake up in the 2-3 in the morning, and the thing to get back to sleep was whack some more drink into me and fall asleep, and then that would be turned into a binge. Didn't turn up for work on Mondays, and it was like, this is not good.
What strategies do you find most beneficial and successful in keeping you sober?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel, it's, at the start, it's a very different thing. Now, at the moment, I wear it like a badge of honor. You know what I mean? When superpower. It's like when people, I always say I'm in the winner's enclosure. Anyone that says to me, I've got a lot of people like, Ollie, I've done 100 days. I'm like, welcome to the winner's enclosure. But for me, it's understanding that A, you can change. B, it's understanding, and one thing that came up for me when I went over to Costa Rica, and I came up with this saying in my head, kept going round, and that was, pain screams the loudest when it's dying.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me before.
Yeah.
Pain screams the loudest when you're dying.
When it's dying.
When it's dying.
Yeah, when the pain is
screams
dying.
the loudest when it's dying.
Yeah.
Okay, so he wants to stay back. He wants to keep
Yeah,
back.
and it's like, if to put it into context, if look at it like a relationship. You've got a relationship, it's totally toxic. You're getting to the point where you're going to leave, you're going to split up, but your girlfriend's crying, it's traumatic, and what you can do in that moment is just you can make those tears stop.
Yeah.
You can give her a hug, you can do something, but you're then caught back in that whirlwind of trauma. You're still in the same space.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this is the moment when it's all that trauma, all that, it's mayhem and everything. You've got to start looking at the fact this is the birth of something new. You are moving through a break. It's a break point, a breakthrough, and you have to go through that, that really tiny sort of channeled,
narrowing,
bottleneck,
to come out,
to get through to the other side. But it's just understanding the more that we can live in that moment and just take baby steps, keep moving forward, then that pain and that discomfort is temporary, as long as you've got clarity of where you're going.
Do you know, picking up on what you just said, I did a podcast, it hasn't gone out yet as an episode, with a guy called Charlie Engle. And Charlie Engle ran the Sahara Desert to deal with, wasn't to deal with his addiction. He broke his addiction and he decided he wanted to push himself. So he done a marathon in the morning and a marathon in the evening, 2 marathons a day in 47 degrees in the Sahara Desert for 111 days straight. He ran 52 miles a day for 111 days. So he could push himself, which is exactly what you're talking about, through that discomfort to become comfortable with being uncomfortable so he could deal with his addiction. And now, every year, I think he's 31 years sober, June, and every year on the anniversary of his sobriety, he runs an hour for every year he's sober. So this year he just ran 31 hours.
Wow, that's incredible.
Impressive,
but that goes back, and this is the one thing going on that, Elliot. It's when that special forces, when I started on special forces selection, just do today.
Yeah, and that's what I picked. That's what made me think of it.
Yeah,
because the characters of you both, there's so many similarities.
Yeah,
and as I said to you when we were having earlier on before we came in here, I said there's very much an all or nothing mentality. I think that's a very, very common trait with lots of people who become addictive.
Yeah, I think also that's a blessing and a curse as well. You know, that all or nothing mentality. You know, because I found it really hard to sit in the middle. You know, and I think the more that you can stop, you know, it's like the simple things. I think it's if you address the small stuff. And I've just like recently one thing that's really made a massive difference to me. You know, in January this year, I was running a dry January campaign. You know, we had a 10K race at the end, which was brilliant, and it was just mentoring people through that whole, you know, January. And it's like it's easy to forget how uncomfortable it is giving up drink, or you know. So, and I was starting to think I'm not actually doing anything that's uncomfortable. You know, I gave up drinking a long time ago. So this is my MO. You know what I mean? It's easy for me. So I thought I need to do something. So every day they're doing something, I need to do something. And I thought, when was the last time you did anything for 30 days consistently? Never. Not since I stopped drinking years ago. And I was like, you know, I go to the gym and stuff, but, you know, I'll miss a day because of an excuse or this, you know, it's just human nature. And I thought, well, how about you just do something where it's non-negotiable for 30 days and live, you know, and this is just change your habit. You know what I mean? Every day change your habit. So I got given a very nice ice bath that I've got to use because they want their penny's worth out of me. Of course they do. So I said, right, every day I'm going to do an ice bath. I mean, for me, 2 minutes, right? And that's including getting to there. And I started off with 1 minute and built up as I went across. How can you not do that? Your mind will tell you, oh, I can't be bothered, or it will try all this trickery, all this wizardry to divert you on your path of doing something. And for me, forget the ice bath. It's something uncomfortable that my mind is going to play games to try and get me to avoid. I committed to it every day. And I tell you now, it's like over 14 days, my mind changed. And I realized the power of these micro habits start to forge a more disciplined and overpowering mentality against the program, because we've got 5% of creative, you know, in our frontal cortex, and 95% is the program. And that's why that's that person that gets up in the morning, I'm not going to drink today, and then before you know it gets towards the end of the day, and the program, the 95%, taps on the shoulder and says, you forgot how we do things around here, haven't you? Oh, I'll take a drink.
Exactly. I've got a little tip for people who do ice baths. I use it as an analogy. When people do an ice bath, I think this is what they should think of. You know, it's freezing cold, right? And if you try and get in very gradually, very slowly, it's very painful, it's very difficult. It's like, it's fucking cold, I don't want to get in here.
Yeah.
That's like giving up an addiction. If you try and deal with it slowly, I'll reduce, I'll use less, I won't use on this occasion. But if you jump straight into the ice bath, it's fucking cold.
Yeah.
But within a few seconds, you acclimatise, it gets comfortable.
Yeah.
That's what it's like with an addiction. Jump straight in and stop, and you acclimatise.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that for me is, you know, when you look at the language as well, Elliot, you'll probably agree with this. I mean, we are driven by the language and the words that are in here, you know, and what happens when you, I know you'll back me up on this, but when you think a thought in here, and we're driven by image that creates an image, that then releases complementary medicine into your body.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So if you're thinking, you know, because the program will take control, you know, the program that calls you to drink every day and everything will try and get you back there and try you get, you know, keep you in that repeat habit loop. But really, it's just understanding the thoughts in your head. Like, I have wiped out the word hope in my vocab. Hope is a poor man's cry. You know what I mean? It's when we say, I hope to give up, or I'm going to try, that's not powerful enough. Okay. I am fucking giving up. Yep. You know, that's enough. Or even more positive, forward project your words around the fact that you've already done it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if you sit there going, well, I'm going to try. Act as if. You know, it's like, I'm so happy and grateful now that I no longer have to rely on drink. When I gave up drinking, I tell you what, the biggest win for me was the fact that I was back in control, regardless of what it was, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cocaine, drugs, or whatever. I was in the driving seat for the first time in a long time. You know, I was fucking porn's bitch. I was alcohol's bitch. I was money's bitch, everything. And the more, if you're not in the driving seat of all those things, then it's going to fucking bitch whip you like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, I've got a few more questions somewhere. Oh, yes, here it is. Okay. Looking back on your journey, what advice would you give to your younger self during the toughest moments of your addiction and personal struggles?
First of all, any change is an inside job. You know, like I said before, we're addicted to believe, or programmed to believe, that everything is external. We can change that. We can change our, you know, we can move from here to there. It's all going to change. You're on a honeymoon period for a couple of weeks, and then before you know it, the trolley full of your old emotional baggage comes around the corner. I really think one thing is like that I talk about a lot is when I went for Special Forces selection, everyone talks about belief, right? As long as you've got belief. I don't believe you need belief. You know, I think a lot of the times when you're feeling weak and very lacking self-worth, you're not going to have belief. Having faith, I believe faith is belief in possibility. Like belief in self, you can grow into that. You know what I mean? And for me, it's like, just because you don't believe you can do it doesn't mean you can't take action towards it. And you grow. We grow as we move forward with momentum. Because at the end of the day, you can't think yourself out of a thought that's totally negative.
No, of course you can't.
You know, it's action. You have to complement it with action. So and really for me, it's like just understanding that, you know, we can change. We can be whoever we want to be. And, you know, to believe that we are we are genetic victims, it's an absolute load of bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We can change our environment. We can do whatever we need to do. We can be who we want to be just by this.
On my post this morning, you may have noticed, I put, I can't wait to speak to Ollie because I want to talk to him about willpower. So before we go, I definitely want to bring this up because I get a lot of comments that go, you can deal with your alcohol, you can deal with your coke, you can just, all you need is willpower. Now, I have this concept, right? I kind of think, I've trained for 39 years in the gym. I love it in the gym. Like, I'm a shadow of myself, but I still go and I still do my cardio, I still do my training, I still enjoy it. You know, 5 days a week, that's my thing. And people say to me, how do you manage to go for the gym for so many years? How do you do that consistently? You must have a lot of willpower. And I go, no, I enjoy it. And I think this thing is, people say, you must need willpower to stop this. You must need willpower to do that. And I kind of go, no, I don't think it requires willpower. It requires you perceiving it to be difficult. That's what you think is willpower. Now, someone who's been through selection and been in special forces, I mean, your willpower to be in those situations that you've been in over those years is incredibly tough. Yeah, alcohol still can take control of you. So what do you think about that concept?
Yeah, for me, willpower is exactly like a muscle. It gets tired. You know what I mean? So I don't care if you're a special forces soldier, you're an astronaut, gold medalist. It's the same in motivation. You don't have consistent levels of motivation. You don't have consistent levels of willpower because it is a muscle and it gets tired. You know, it comes and it goes. And that for me is why one thing that I took away, you know, a lot of the stuff I can't take away from the military and use in my everyday life, but the one main thing is discipline. Yeah. That discipline is one thing that switches off the emotion that's up here and says, regardless of what's going on in my head, I'm going to walk downstairs, I'm going to put those trainers on, I'm going to walk outside that door and I'm going to take the first step into that run. Every day.
You're right.
And it's like, for me, you know, and when people talk about, I just didn't have the motivation, it's like motivation is lack of clarity. You know, it's like a lot of people will go to the gym and they'll walk around and they don't even really know what they're doing. The next day they go, I can't be bothered, I really haven't got the motivation. It's because they haven't got the clarity. And that really is, you've got to plan, you've got to get the knowledge, you've got to understand, like even like me now, people think, you've got this dead strong willpower and everything. I need a plan to go into the gym. And I go through an app, you know, which tells me you will go there, you will do that, you will do that. And that keeps me on track, regardless of what's going on. I go, you are doing that regardless of what your head's telling you. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Breakpoint.
Yeah. Well, Breakpoint is my baby. I came back. I mean, it's quite a monumental story because I came back to the UK 2014, 2015 after 10 years away. And had this dream, and that was to start this business called Breakpoint. And that was really through, I'd just come back from Southeast Asia, where I was rescuing kids from child prostitution, slavery, the most monumental thing I'd done to that point.
Well, I've got to shake your hand.
Thank you very much,
that was
mate.
Brilliant.
Thank you. And this was really laying the DNA. So that helping these kids, and then me going through my own battles, I was like, those two things created this DNA, and that was about, right, I want to help other people. First through that, and I knew I'd help myself, and the power of that change I wanted to share with everyone. So that became Breakpoint. Breakpoint is the globally identified brand recognized for the positive growth and development of others. And really, it's just getting people to understand the power that we hold within. You know, at the end of the day, everyone's outside looking for the magic. The magic is in here. And the more we can understand that and start to empower ourselves from the inside out, we will affect that change. Again, Breakpoint is a disruptive change in habitual behavior in line with a predetermined goal. So it's about having that goal, understanding you're going to go through the discomfort, but as long as we keep momentum with a clear view and clarity, we get there.
I think a lot of people who do advocacy and do work and help people in mental health and addictions who have been through it themselves, I think there's something quite powerful about that in helping others. You're sharing your story. You know, it's not about sitting there going, you know, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, listen, do what the fuck you like. But if you want some help, or you want to shape up and you want to change things, then you got to look around. You got to surround yourself with the right people, the right podcasts, the right, you know, groups you go to, the right whatever it is for you. You got to find the right way for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, it's like you get addicted to growth because it's so powerful, isn't it? First of all, I mean, we're supposed to feel good about helping our fellow human. You know what I mean? It's innate within us to feel empowered by that. That's why I saw the power of that. When I was helping those kids in Thailand, I was at the front end of changing the destiny of these kids' lives. And that was so powerful for me. When you can do something, when you can, and pretty much everyone can, when they look at you look at your job, whatever job you do, and instead of thinking, I'm just doing this to pay the bills, I'm just doing it because I've got to pay for X, Y, Z, think of how you're helping another human. You know, take some time out, and just that reframing can give you a fresh sense of real empowerment for what you're doing. But really, for me, like, I could not live each day now without listening to my podcast, without my training, without just being on this constant journey to evolve. And I'll never know all there is to know. Neither will you.
Of course we won't.
We're always at school, and
Absolutely.
that to me gives me such a sense of purpose and drive.
There's a question I ask all of my guests that I finish with, and I always say, to all the listeners, people listening to this, and I hope there are millions of you, to all the people listening to this, someone who's struggling with an addiction, whether it be alcohol, whether it be cocaine, what advice would you give to them? In one sentence, what advice would you give someone listening?
Someone listening is to first just understand that there is a way out of your situation. Regardless of where you are, we have choices. And it's when you start to understand and believe in those choices, and if you haven't got belief, just take action towards something different, embrace that discomfort of change, and we can be exactly who we want to be.
Perfect. Ollie, I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Mate, it's been a power session.
There you go. Hey. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.